Hello and welcome back to That's Metal Park channel here at YouTube now. So, welcome to the first episode to kick off Metaltober, which is definitely a little something I always do every October. And this time I definitely have some stuff in store for you, and it's definitely going to span out throughout the whole entire month of October. So, to kick off Metaltober, I kind of wanted to do something pretty interesting, and that's, of course, name 10 albums, or at least for this episode, 10 metal albums that were released in the month of October. Something pretty interesting. So, without further ado, let's have to get into it. So, got it on the list, so I don't forget. Coming in at number 10, I don't know what day, because the thing with this list, I kind of went from the first day, or at least the earliest day, all the way to the last, month of October, at least up to at least maybe the 31st, I think, or what is the last day or so of October, or what's the highest. That's the way I kind of went. I don't know what year, or what day, this was released. But this was released in October 1985. That's, of course, is Walls of Jericho from Halloween. A classic power metal album. Or speed power, so, from 1985. German band. Classic. I don't have to say any more. Next one. Now, of course, I was able to find a day for this one. This, of course, was released on October 4th, 1982. And, of course, we're talking about possibly one of my favorite German metal albums of all time. Restless and Wild from Accept. Classic. Nothing more can be said. Of course, this is an original 1982 pressing. Of course, due to the artwork, it is the original German pressing, and of course, most of the writing and credits is all written in German, and I was able to find this out in the wild. I believe it was Recycled Records up in Reno. Great album. Was happy to find it. I've never seen the American pressing of Restless and Wild, or the U.S. pressing, so at the cover, with that live shot of Udo just choking on bass player Peter Boltes. I've never seen that copy. I've never seen it, which is weird. But of course, this is a brain pressing as usual, so that's why. Not like I don't have the artwork, since that artwork was kind of used for the whole compilation of Balls to the Walls / Restless and Wild, which is this one right here. Yeah, that's the only cover. This is basically the only album that I have that does have the U.S. cover of Restless and Wild. But I've never seen an actual original, pressing of the American copy for Restless and Wild out in the wild. Wow, just saying wild almost every time. Alright, moving on. Coming in at number 8, this album was released on October 5th, 1979. Of course, we're talking about Narita from Riot. One of my favorite albums from Riot. Just a classic album. Probably my favorite of the Guy Speranza era. I think the sound, I'll definitely say it again, I like the sound much more than Fire Down Under. Not that I hate Fire Down Under, that's a great album, but I just kind of find the sound a much better album. It's more paced better, I think. It's got just killer tracks on here, just from Waiting for the Taking all the way to Road Racing. Killer album. Enough said. Alright, coming at number 7, I don't own this album, but I've listened to this album a number of times. This was released on October 7th, 1986. This, of course, is Rain and Blood by Slayer. Now, I know there was another album that was also released in on October, but it was on the year 1990. It was of course was Season in the Abyss. I had it on the list, but then I took it off because of, I don't know, I should have left it as an honorable mention, but I didn't. But still, nonetheless, Rain and Blood. I could have definitely went with Season of the Abyss because I think Rain and Blood kind of an overrated album, but I've listened to the album a lot of times though, so it's of course on the list. This is definitely, like I'm saying, I'm putting out there, this is not a, a definitive, favorite list or so. Just a couple of 10 albums that were released in October. Just something that was very interesting, alright? Okay, now moving on. Coming in at number 6, another album I don't own. But, nonetheless, I've listened to this album a number of times. This, of course, was released on October 9th, 1978. This, of course, is Killing Machine by Judas Priest. This, of course, was the original release date for the album in Europe, when it was called Killing Machine before being released in the U.S. a year later as Hellbent for Leather. So, it's quite something that the original release date for this is October 9th, which definitely gives it why. And, of course, being released in 1978. It's a good album from Judas Priest. Of course, coming off the heels of probably one of their best albums, of course, is Stained Class. But Killing Machine was a good album nonetheless by Judas Priest. Of course, I had the album in my thing was like top 30 or so of best albums from 1978. I'll definitely link you to that video. It's a two-parter. So, yeah, coming in at number 5, this is an album I do own right here. And, of course, this was released on October 14th, 1981. This, of course, is Denim and Leather from Saxon. Great album, though. Love this album. Just a good album from Saxon. Hard rockin', style of bare bones, new wave, or British heavy metal. Just a great album. I can't say anything more because this is not really about favorites, like I said. Moving on. Coming in at number 4, this was released also on October 14th, but released in 1983. So, we're talking about is Born America from Riot. Another Riot album here. I know. But this is a 10 list. I just want to keep the list at 10. Because I don't need any, like, oh, but you should have put all 10 or 2 albums from Slayer. Yeah, blow it. Still, yeah, good album. Definitely probably my favorite of the Rhett Forrester era. But of course, I like, the album before this one, Restless Breed. It's a good album. But the thing is, I always put this a bit over, Restless Breed. It's because of it. This was kind of my exposure to Riot. And to me, it's an album that always stays with me. Killer album, nonetheless, from Riot. Of course, I do enjoy Riot Pie a bit more than Slayer. I'm putting it out there. So, bringing in all the triggered Slayer fans. Alright, so this sound comes in at number 3. This was released on October 16th, 1985. And the fact that this album was released in October is definitely probably gives this album its coolness, I guess. But it fits. God damn, fucking engine. It of course is Seven Churches from Possessed. An album that does fit the whole October theme in a way. Because of the album starts off with the track The Exorcist. And of course it uses the film score from the movie The Exorcist. And in a way, the fact that it was released in October, yeah, Halloween all the way through, but it wasn't released around that time. No, we're getting to an album that was. But still, great album nonetheless. Definitely one of the pioneers for the whole death metal genre. But Just a great thrash death album. One of my favorites. Alright, before I get into number 2, this is definitely a band, just one of my favorite bands, and I could have chose also this other album that I'm showing, so in a way this is almost an honorable mention before I get to number 2, because I was thinking whether or not I wanted to put this album in the 10 list, or I wanted to put this as an honorable mention, but I forgot to. That is, of course, is Aftershock from Motorhead. This was released on October 22nd of 2013, and I almost felt sentimental to put it in the list due to the fact that I kind of bought this album 3 days after it's released, and it was probably the first and last Motorhead album that I ever will buy on pretty much around its release date. Something I didn't do with The World Is Yours. Something I did not do with their last album and their final album, Bad Magic. But Aftershock, I did. And probably one of the reasons why this is one of my favorites of the whole modern era of Motorhead. Just a great album and one of the last of their albums. However, the album that didn't make the list and is, like I said, coming at number 2, and it was released on October 27th, 1979, is Bomber from Motorhead. Like I said again, between the two Motorhead albums, I kind of went with the one that I listened to a lot more earlier before this one, of course. But that's nothing to take away from this album. But Bomber, classic album from Motorhead, released, coming off the heels of Overkill. But sure, maybe Overkill might always get the better, rating or so over this, but this is still a great Motorhead album. Everything from, Don't Dead Man Tell No Tales, Lawman, Sweet Revenge. I can't see, I can't always see what's here because I always have to put the lines there in front of there. It's annoying. But again, Sweet Revenge, Sharpshooter, Poison, Stone Dead Forever, All the Aces, Step Down, Talking Head. The whole album, of course, Bomber, being one of the greatest Motorhead tracks of all time. It's a killer album from Motorhead. Enough said. So we're finally at number 1, of course, released in October 30th of 1983. And the fact that this album was released a day before Halloween just gives this album an extra boost. You would have thought that an album like Seven Churches would have been released a day before, but it wasn't. But this album, oh hell yeah. We're talking about Melissa from Merciful Fate album I don't own as well, but would love to come across a copy of it, at least a original vinyl pressing, mostly the original Megaforce Records pressing, just so. Just a bona fide classic. Of course, right now I got a whole poll between, Don't Break the Oath versus Witchburner, but Melissa, hell yeah, one of the best heavy metal albums of all time, and one of those essential albums that almost every metalhead should at least have. Just a killer album. So, this was definitely a pretty interesting list, something that was definitely different. Hopefully you definitely gained something new. It would be kind of interesting to know what albums that you like that were also released in October. It doesn't have to be metal or rock or something. It can be of any other genre. So, not like to make this a big thread or so, but this was something I kind of want to do because of this is the month of October. Come on. So, until then, this is Heavy Thrash. Sam out. And I'll see you again.